Okay, today we are going to start our International Accounting Standard 16. If you see, this is the tab IAS 16, or let me write it here. The most common, the most famous, and हम कह सकते हैं कि यार ये वाला जो स्टैंडर्ड है ना आपका हर कंपनी में यूज होता है, किसी के पास इन्वेस्टमेंट हो ना हो, इंटेंजिबल हो ना हो, ठीक है, ये नॉर्मली होता ही है, आपके पास इक्विपमेंट बिल्डिंग वगैरह तो होती है, ठीक है। अच्छा, लैपटॉप के माइक से आ रही है, लेट मी चेक। अच्छा हो गया, आपने यार बता दिया। ये थोड़ा सा ना इधर मल्टीपल स्क्रीन है ना, तो उसमें अक्सर किसका वो हो जाता है ऑन, वो मैं देख लेता हूँ। यानी आपको मेरी आवाज़ जो है डुप्लीकेट डबल आ रही है, मैं देख लेता हूँ, इसको भी कर लेते हैं सेटिंग। ओके, कैन यू जस्ट रिकॉर्डिंग रिकॉर्डिंग the first okay, Daniel, now I think the things are resolved. So we are basically today the topic is IAS 16, और जो कि मैंने भी थोड़ी देर पहले बताया बड़ा फेमस टॉपिक है। हर एंटिटी में ये तो कम से कम होता ही है, कुछ हो ना हो, इन्वेंट्री हो ना हो, आपके पास जो है फिक्स एसेट्स जो है नॉर्मली कंसिडर होते ही हैं, ऑल्सो नोन एज फिक्स एसेट। Okay, one thing that you should keep in mind that most of the time, mostly every standard have four main headings. One is scope, the other one is recognition, measurement, and the final heading is disclosures. So mostly every standard have these four headings, okay? But there are cases when one standard is explaining a single heading. There are cases. For example, IFRS 8, we are already doing the disclosure. IAS 24, we are only looking at the disclosure, okay? But most of the time, many standards have these four main headings. So why these headings are important? So first thing, let me tell you about the scope. Scope is very much important. It will tell you what type of item will be recorded in this particular standard. Okay, so scope will define the criteria, will give you the characteristic, what items will be recorded in this. Okay, then we have recognition. Recognition tell you when to record it and where to record it. Okay, so recognition will tell you when to record and where to record. For example, this is property, plant and equipment. Where should it be record property, plant and equipment? Obviously in statement of financial position as a non-current asset. Then we have measurement. Measurement decide the value, how to calculate the value of certain assets or any item. Finally, the disclosure. If you remember, we have discussed the disclosure yesterday in conceptual framework, that disclosures are basically the working, that how that figure have been calculated. It's the main working that should provide the detail, right? Any question? Yes, Daniel? You did? Okay. So starting from the scope, scope of IAS 16 tells you that these are tangible non-current assets held by an entity. Okay. Tangible means they have physical existence, they can be touched, they can be felt. Okay. They are non-current in nature. That means that they will provide you benefit for more than 12 months. Okay. Held by an entity for production, supply of goods, rentals, and for administrative purpose. These are the characteristic of the IAS 16. Okay. One more thing. It is not the item that decide where to record it. It is the use that decide where to record it. Right? Let me give you an example. For example, if you are have purchased a car, where should we record it? For example, if we have purchased a vehicle, where should we record it? On current asset. Okay, let me tell you additionally, let me give you additional information. For example, my business is to purchase vehicle and then to sell the vehicle. So where to record it now? Stop. Pause, stop. Pause. Okay. Sorry for disruption, Daniel. There is some technical issues here. Okay. Okay. अब आप ये देखो ना कि एक ही व्हीकल है लेकिन उसका यूज डिसाइड कर रहा है वे टू रिकॉर्ड इट. ओके. अगर आप उसको रीपर्चेज करने के लिए सेल करने के लिए रीपर्चेज करते हो तो वो आपकी जो है इन्वेंट्री है. लेकिन अगर आप उसको कहते हो कि यार मैं इसको यूज करूंगा और उससे फॉलोइंग वर्ड ये फंक्शंस लूंगा मैं उनसे, सॉरी ये फंक्शंस लूंगा मैं, तो फिर वो क्या चला जाता है आपका IAS 16 में आता. तो बेसिकली इट्स नॉट द एसेट और इट्स नॉट द आइटम दैट विल डिसाइड where to record it. It is the use that decide, that tells us where to record, how to record. Okay, right? That is most important thing. So scope is very much important. It will tell you what type of items are covered under this particular standard. Okay, so if, and again, tangible non-current assets held by an entity for production, supply of goods, rentals, and for administrative purpose. These are the characteristic. Okay, these are the characteristic, not criteria. One thing, there is a difference between criteria and characteristic. Characteristic mean one point meets that is enough. But for criteria, you have to meet all the points. All the criteria should be complied with. Okay. So criteria is somewhat rigid, strict. Okay. You have to fulfill all the points. But for characteristic, if for example you have purchased an asset and you are using it for production, it means the characteristic is fulfilled and that asset will be recorded as a tangible non-current asset in property, plant and equipment, right? For example, if you have purchased a building and that building is used for production, it means recorded in IAS 16. If you purchase a building that is used for supply of goods or services, that is IAS 16. If you purchase a good building that is used for administrative purpose, IAS 16. But if you see that there is a asterisk here, a building that is purchased for rental purpose, IAS 40 is the right standard that will provide further details how to record that type of building. Okay. Remaining assets like vehicles, equipment, machinery, plant, fixtures, and fitting, if they have purchased for rental purpose, they are still be recording in the IAS 16. But specifically for building, if building has purchased for production, supply of goods, or administrative, it will be recorded in IAS 16. But if the building is purchased for rental purpose, building or property will be recorded in IAS 40, right? Okay. Any question, Daniel? Okay, let's move to the next heading, recognition. When to record and where to record. For example, if I am the one who is controlling that asset, will get the future economic benefit asset and the cost can be measured reliably, obviously. So this means that the asset will be recorded in my books. Okay. And which book? We have done the elements. Okay. That because this is an asset and it's an element of financial position, so it must be recorded in financial position, right? So the future economic benefit and cost can be measured reliably. This is important. If, for example, Manabi is doing this, okay, so this asset, for example, this equipment, electronics, it belongs to, they are controlling these, okay, they are getting future economic benefit from these, and the cost can be measured reliably. So it means that these equipment will be recorded in the financial position of the Manabi, okay. For the time being, we are getting future economic benefit as well, but we are not controlling it. We have done what does control mean, okay. The ability to sell or the ability to gift, okay, or whatever you want to do with that asset. Okay, so that is control. Then we are going to measurement. If you see in recognition, measurement is very much important because it is important. That's why they have discussed in recognition. Okay, so measurement, because tangible non-current assets are non-current in nature. So measurement is divided into two categories. One is initial measurement and then subsequent measurement. Okay. So when you purchase an asset, first you will think about what should be recorded, why, at what value this asset should be recorded. Okay. So for initial measurement, you should keep in mind that asset should be measured at cost, which comprise of purchase price less all discount, all directly attributable costs of bringing the asset to location, and initial estimate of dismantling cost. Three bullets. Purchase price less all discount, okay, including trade discount and settlement discount as well. All directly attributable costs for bringing the asset to location and suitable consideration. Okay, we can also call DAC directly attributable cost. Directly attributable cost is something that is necessary to bring. Without that, the asset won't be come into suitable condition. Okay, so that is a necessary cost we incur to bring the asset to location and condition. So we will cover some example here. Okay, okay. If you see for initial measurement, purchase price less all discount, and in bracket I have written non-refundable tax. Why non-refundable tax? Are you familiar with refundable and non-refundable tax? Anyone? Okay. A refundable tax, basically for filers, sometimes they can refund some tax, recover some tax. If I am a non-filer, I cannot recover tax. Okay. So, for example, if you purchase a mobile phone, a smartphone, and for example, let's assume, are you a filer or non-filer? Filer. Okay. I'm also a filer. Let's assume for the moment I am a non-filer. Let's assume it for the moment. So, when you purchase a mobile phone, the list price of that mobile phone is, for example, 50,000. Okay, and there is a tax of 10%. For example, 5,000. When I ask the price of the mobile phone, you will tell me that you have bought it for 50,000. There is also a tax that you have paid, but you will telling me that you will recover that tax. So it means that mobile phone costs you 50,000, right? But if you are asking me the same thing, I will tell you that mobile will cost me 55,000 because I have paid 50,000 for list price, I have paid 5,000 for tax, and that 5,000 is non-refundable. So that 5,000 is also a cost to me. That's why I'm telling the price of mobile is 55,000, right? That's why non-refundable tax will add it in the cost of the asset. Okay. Then one thing, transportation cost. These are all directly attributable costs. Transportation cost. Why it is directly attributable cost? Because without getting it transported from one place to the other place where we are doing business, we cannot able to obtain future economic benefit from it. So that's why transportation is necessary. Okay, and we should add in the cost. Okay, right? Got it? Okay. Site preparation. Site preparation is also important. Without getting the place ready for that asset, we won't be able to operate it well. Okay. It will be added in the cost of that asset or in some other asset. For example, if I am purchasing a vehicle, I need a garage for it, right? So that garage will be added in the cost of building, although it is capitalized, right? Legal cost is also very much important. Stamp duty. Stamp duty is the type of legal cost. Inspection cost is also important. Okay. Why inspection is important? Because in most of the legislation or in most of the local laws, the government will not allow you to use the asset once you get the NOC. Okay. First, they will inspect, right? If you are using vehicle, These days you are familiar that they are working on the green test, right, in Lahore. So that is also important. Inspection cost will also be capitalized. Testing cost is also part of the inspection. It should also be capitalized. Insurance and transit. Although insurance is a good thing, it's a vast scenario, but insurance and transit is specifically capitalized in the cost of the asset. Okay. Then we have installation cost. Installation cost is also capitalized because without installation we won't be able to get future economic benefit from the asset. Okay, okay, Daniel. Tell me about the training cost. Are you familiar with the training cost? What is the training cost? Is it capitalized or not? Exactly. It is given to, or it is applied on the for the training of employees. And we have discussed that employees are not assets. So any subsequent expenditure that you incurred on employees will not consider as an asset as well, right? Um, uh, you know the concept of capital expenditure and revenue expenditure. A capital expenditure and revenue expenditure. Capital expenditure is basically when you purchase an asset, it is capital expenditure. Any subsequent expenditure that enhance future economic benefit. Future economic benefit means either it enhance the useful life, the performance, the value. It will also be capitalized, right? Revenue expenditure is basically do not enhance. They are like expense, general expenses. Okay, they are more frequent. These are less frequent. Okay, so capital expenditure is less frequent and provide a long-term benefit, while revenue expenditure are more frequent and provide short-term benefit. What we can say. Okay. So training cost is basically, we are talking about the training cost. First thing, employees are not assets, right? So any subsequent expenditure on employees will not be considered as an asset as well. Okay. Then we have initial operating losses. Initial operating losses are also not part of the cost. It will be expensed out. Then we have general expenses. These are also be expensed out. Then administration expenses and relocation expenses. These are also expensed out. What about what do you know about the relocation expenses? Do you think relocation should be capitalized in the cost of asset? Why? It is the cost. Cost can be divided into expense and asset. Okay, cost itself further divided into expense and asset. So it is a cost. So why relocation expenses are not capitalized? Okay, आप जाते हो उसको रतन टाटा को मर गया रतन टाटा उसने जब एक प्रॉमिस किया था ना नैनो कार का तो नैनो कार के लिए उन्होंने बताया था कि यार कि मैं जो हूँ ना नैनो कार दूंगा और हर बंदा जो है ना इंडिया में इसको 1 लाख का परचेज कर सकेगा अब 1 लाख का परचेज करने का मतलब है कि यार वो 1 लाख से कम की बनेगी तभी वो 1 लाख का सेल कर सकता है ना तो मसला ये हो रहा था कि वो 1 लाख का जो प्रॉमिस उसने कहा था कि प्रॉमिस इज अ प्रॉमिस वो अचीव नहीं हो रहा था तो उसने पूरी अपनी जो इंडस्ट्री है उस नैनो कार की वो उसने रीलोकेट की और बड़ी मटेरियल अमाउंट जो है उसमें खर्च हुई उस रीलोकेशन में वो किसी दूर गांव में ले गया जहाँ पे इलेक्ट्रिसिटी चीप थी लेबर चीप थी ठीक है ताकि उसका वो जो प्रॉमिस है टू सेल द नैनो कार फॉर 1 लाख वो अचीव हो सके। ठीक है, अब वो मेजर कॉस्ट उसने इनकर की, लेकिन उससे क्या हुआ, रीलोकेशन को हमने यहाँ पे पढ़ा, देखें आप देखें, हमने पढ़ा कि डायरेक्टली एट्रीब्यूटेबल कॉस्ट फॉर ब्रिंगिंग द एसेट टू लोकेशन एंड कंडीशन। तो वो जो फर्स्ट टाइम लग रही है लोकेशन और कंडीशन में लाने तक की कॉस्ट, वो क्या अप्लाइज होती है अगर वो डायरेक्टली एट्रीब्यूटेबल है। ये जो रीलोकेशन है वो तो ऑलरेडी वर्किंग कंडीशन में था, ये तो उसके बाद इनकर हो रही है। तो इसीलिए वजह से कि ये रीलोकेशन कॉस्ट आपकी क्या होती है कि अप्लाइज नहीं होती। अब अक्सर आपने देखा होगा कि यार मुझसे स्टूडेंट्स ये सवाल पूछते हैं कि फॉर एग्जांपल मैं अभी कराची से गाड़ी लेता हूँ, मैं उसको लेकर इस्लामाबाद में आता हूँ और उसको मैं बेचता हूँ, तो वैल्यू तो बढ़ गई। मैं पेशावर से गाड़ी लेकर आ रहा हूँ और उसके इस्लामाबाद में आगे बेच रहा हूँ, तो वैल्यू तो बढ़ गई नहीं। तो रीलोकेशन तो वैल्यू बढ़ा रही है। हम्म, तो यहाँ पे स्टैंडर्ड गलत हो गया। तो बेसिकली यहाँ पे जो गाड़ी की वैल्यू है ना, वो मार्केट की वजह से बढ़ रही है। लाहौर की गाड़ी लाहौर में सस्ती क्यों है? लाहौर एक बड़ी मार्केट है। कराची उससे बड़ी मार्केट है, इसलिए कराची में गाड़ियां बहुत सस्ती हैं, वहां पे गाड़ियां ज्यादा हैं, बंदे कम है। इस्लामाबाद में क्या होता है कि यार गाड़ियां कम होती हैं, बंदे ज्यादा होते हैं। तो यहाँ पे वो जो डिमांड और सप्लाई का वो है ना, वो मीट नहीं हो रहा होता। इस वजह से गाड़ी यहाँ पे महंगी मिल रही है। अदरवाइज वो और कोई इशू नहीं है इसमें कि यार रीलोकेशन से कैसे होता है। फॉर एग्जांपल मैं कहता हूँ अभी कि यार मैं एक एसेट है उसको यूज करके बेचूंगा, अब गाड़ी चलेगी तो डेफिनेटली यूज होगी, तो उसकी मार्केट वैल्यू गिरेगी बढ़ेगी, कम होगी डेप्रिसिएशन की वजह से। तो यहाँ पे मार्केट डिसाइड कर रही है उसकी प्राइस, ये रीलोकेशन से इसका ताल्लुक नहीं है। रीलोकेशन ये है कि इस्लामाबाद एक छोटी मार्केट है, लाहौर बड़ी है और कराची उससे भी बड़ी है, इस वजह से जो है प्राइसेस जो है उस तरीके से डिफाइन हो रही है। ठीक है, अच्छा। दूसरी चीज कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर और रेवेन्यू एक्सपेंडिचर में समटाइम ऐसा होता है कि स्टूडेंट्स विल फेस डिफिकल्टीज टू ट्रीट वेदर इट्स अ कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर और रेवेन्यू एक्सपेंडिचर। मोस्टली लेट मी गिव यू एन एग्जांपल, बिकॉज मेरे पास गाड़ियों की एग्जांपल ही देने के अलावा होता है ज़्यादा बिल्डिंग में, बिकॉज इट विल बी इजी टू अंडरस्टैंड व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट कार्स और वी इंट्रोड्यूस एनी पार्ट्स। ओके, फॉर एग्जांपल you are selling a car and you have sprayed that car. Sprayed mean you have painted that car. That paint considered as a capital expenditure or revenue expenditure? Hmm? अच्छा, आपने गाड़ी में पेंट किया, तो वो पेंट जो आपने किया, वो जो शॉवर किया उसको बॉडी को, ठीक है, पूरी गाड़ी को शॉवर किया आपने, दैट इज अ कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर और रेवेन्यू एक्सपेंडिचर? Not capitalized, it means you are treating it as a revenue expenditure. Okay, you have installed a new tires and rim in the car. Is it capital or revenue? Is it capital or revenue? Revenue. Sorry, चार्ज पे पता नहीं, यहाँ पे तो नीचे तो नहीं पता। ओके, नहीं मैं उसकी बात कर रहा हूँ कि कैप आपने जो, सॉरी, यू हैव इंस्टॉल्ड न्यू कार एंड न्यू टायर्स इन द कार, यू हैव इंस्टॉल्ड न्यू टायर्स इन द कार, इज इट कैपिटल और रेवेन्यू? Revenue. Okay, you have installed new engine in the car. Capital. Okay. आप गाड़ी का टायर कितना फ्रीक्वेंटली चेंज करते हो, मुझे पहले ये बताओ। हर 2 महीने बाद चेंज हो जाता है गाड़ी का टायर? नॉट आफ्टर 1 ईयर। टायर की लाइफ जो है ना आपकी होती है तकरीबन 4 ईयर्स होती है उसकी स्टॉक, जो होती है ना शेल्फ लाइफ होती है। उसके बाद भी चलते हैं, चलाते रहते हैं लोग, ऑल वो हार्ड हो जाता है। और दूसरा वो जो है तकरीबन 40 to 50,000 जो है ना माइलेज पे आप चेंज करना चाहिए। तो वो 40 to 50,000 बड़ा टाइम होता है गाड़ी में चलने में। लोगों के पास 10-10 साल से गाड़ी खड़ी होती है, 2 लाख चली होती है, 20-3 लाख चली होती है। तो जो टायर है वो कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर है। सही है। कभी आपने देखा है गाड़ी का ऐड पार्क व्हील पे या OLX पे गाड़ी का लोग ऐड किस तरीके से पोस्ट करते हैं? हम्म। अच्छा। अब होता क्या है, गाड़ी में फॉर एग्जांपल आपने एक पोस्ट किया, रिसेंटली शावर्ड, ओके, फॉर फ्रेश लुक, न्यू rear view camera has been installed, new infotainment system has been installed, tire has been recently changed, ठीक है, ऐसे ही होता है ना। ये सारी चीजें मेंशन करता है ना, वो क्यों मेंशन कर रहा है? वो इसलिए मेंशन कर रहा है बिकॉज ही इज एक्सपेक्टिंग दैट यू विल पे फॉर इट। उसने नए टायर डलवाए हैं तो मेंशन करने की क्या जरूरत है? वो इसलिए मेंशन कर रहा है कि भाई मैं जो गाड़ी की कीमत है ना, ये टायर जो है ना मार्केट में मिलते हैं 60,000 के, तैयार हो जाओ जी, इसके भी चार्ज करूंगा मैं। बैटरी आपने वो की है, नई बैटरी डाली है, तो यार उसके भी मैं बता रहा हूँ कि अभी बैटरी डाली है, लेकिन वो ये नहीं बता रहा मैंने रिसेंटली टैंक फुल किया है। स्क्रीन शो नहीं हो रही? ओके, अभी हो रही है स्क्रीन शो? ओके। सो वो इसलिए बता रहा होता है कि वो एक्सपेक्ट करता है कि वो आपसे रिकवर करे। सो इन सिंपल वर्ड, कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर इज एनीथिंग दैट वी incurred and we expect that we will recover it from other party, when from the customer or from the buyer, okay, when we sell that assets, okay. So इसलिए वो बता रहा होता है, वो ये नहीं बताता मैंने अभी ऑयल चेंज किया है, वो ये नहीं बताता मैंने वो होता, ऑल्दो अगर उसने किया भी होगा लेकिन वो बताएगा नहीं। वो बताएगा तो उसका क्या मतलब है, हम उसको पैसे पे कर देंगे? नहीं, बाकी चीजें वो बता रहा होता है। तो इन सिंपल वर्ड्स, any expense you incurred on any subsequent expenditure you have incurred on an asset, and if you are mentioning it and you think that this cost will be recovered by the buyer, it means you can capitalize it, okay. मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम वो जो शावर की बात कर रहे हैं ना गाड़ी में, समटाइम वो भी बताते हैं यार मैंने रिसेंटली शावर की है, बता रहा है। ऑल्दो इन पाकिस्तान वी कंसिडर शावरिंग इज नॉट अ गुड थिंग, बट प्रैक्टिकली अगर देखा जाए शावर से फ्रेश लुक आ गया तो अच्छी चीज़ है यार, ठीक है, राइट। सो दैट इज कैपिटल एंड रेवेन्यू एक्सपेंडिचर, ओके। Then we have initial estimate of dismantling cost. Okay. Although in this bullet we are talking about that any attribute directly attributable cost that is necessary for that incurred to bring the asset to working condition or location will be capitalized, right? But dismantling cost, you know, it will be incurred at the end of the useful life, right? तो इसको हम क्यों कैपिटलाइज कर रहे हैं? इसको हम इसलिए कैपिटलाइज कर रहे हैं बिकॉज दिस इज डायरेक्टली प्रोपोर्शनल टू दिस इंस्टॉलेशन। Without the installation, there is no need to dismantle anything. Okay, we are in. We will pay dismantling cost because at the first step we have installed the asset. That's why we are now bearing only if there is a legal and constructive obligation. If there is no legal or constructive obligation, there is no concept of dismantling cost. Okay, so that's why dismantling cost should be capitalized. And if you see, I have used the word estimate because one thing, I don't know what is the exact amount that I need to pay after 10 years. But at this time, I will making a guess, or that guess, what I call it the best estimate to determine that this much cost will be needed to dismantle the asset, right? And again, are you familiar with the time value of money? Are you familiar with the time value of money? Okay. So, because it will incur in the future, so we need to bring this cost to the present value, and that present value should be capitalized here, right? Okay. So basically, what we do, this is our initial estimate, initial measurement. Okay, that is necessary, right? So I have a question for you. This is the question. Okay, let me zoom out it for you. Is it visible? Okay. Now it's your turn to determine the cost of the asset. Okay, give me 1 minute while I came back. In the meantime, you need to calculate the cost of asset. Okay, there are different transactions, there are different type of costs. So find the initial measurement cost for the asset. Okay. Yes, Daniel. So what type of cost should be included? What is the cost? According to you, what is the cost? Okay. Continuously, is it blur? Okay. Can you open your mic for the timing so that I can ask you? I will tell you what is it is written there. So purchase price. What about purchase price? Okay, let me allow. Okay, try. It's working. Yeah, it's working, but sorry, the speaker at my end is not working, I think. Okay, first is the purchase price. A purchase price, definitely it should be capitalized. Then we have trade discount, it should be deducted. Then we have settlement discount, it will be deducted. Then we have site preparation, it should be capitalized. Legal fees is capitalized. Commission is capitalized, directly attributable. Freight charges are basically type of transportation, it should be capitalized. Fines basically um, um, should be expensed out. Inspection should be capitalized, installation should be capitalized, training costs should be expensed out, general overhead expensed out, operating losses, relocation, and should be expensed out. Refundable tax will be recorded as a separate asset like a receivable, and non-refundable tax basically capitalized in the price. So let me highlight which should be included here: trade, settlement, site preparation, legal fees, commission, freight, inspection, installation, and this. So this will be the cost 3885. Okay, this will be the cost here. Okay, right? Okay. Some more things that should be have to be discussed before moving to the subsequent expenditure. Number one is deferred consideration. Deferred consideration, I think you are familiar with deferred consideration. You have seen this deferred consideration concept when you were doing consolidation questions. Okay, so deferred consideration is basically a promise to pay in future, agreed to pay in future. So in case there is a deferred consideration involved in the transaction, in the situation, you need to capitalize the present value only. Okay, interest charge because of unwinding will be expensed out. Okay. For exchange of asset, an exchange should be measured at the fair value unless exchange lacks commercial substance. Okay. So exchange should be measured at fair value unless exchange lacks commercial substance or fair value of neither of asset can be measured reliably. Okay. If that is the case, the acquired asset is measured at the carrying amount of the asset given up. Okay. So basically, when you are acquiring any asset, you are paying cash. Okay. So cash is a form of consideration, and the cost of new asset is determined by the consideration you have paid to acquire that asset, right? For example, you have paid 1,000 to acquire a certain asset. So it means when you are recording that asset in a balance sheet, you will assign a value of 1,000, right? But if you are paying one asset to acquire another asset, the consideration you have paid is asset. So the cost of new asset would be the carrying amount of the given up asset, right? Let me share some example here. For example, you have traded asset A to acquire asset B. Is it visible? So, for example, in first case, we will discuss some cases here. In first case, fair value of asset A is 500 and fair value of asset B is 510. Okay. Or what we can say 502, for example, 502. Then second case, fair value assume 500, but the fair value of asset B is 580. Third case, only fair value of A is present, there is no fair value of B. In fourth case, only fair value of B is present, there is no fair value of A. And in last case, there is no fair value of either of asset, and only you have the carrying amount of asset A, which is 400. So there is basically a 5 situation. Okay. So in first situation, when the fair value of A is 500 and the fair value of B is 502, at what value should you record the asset B? It should be recorded at 500, right? In second situation, fair value of asset A is 500, but the fair value of asset B is 580. 580. Why? Because there is a material difference between the fair value of both assets. So that's why you are using 580. And in third situation, 500 because the only fair value is fair value of A. In fourth situation, 580 because the fair value is of B is given. And in final situation, because you don't have the fair value of either of asset, so you will be using carrying amount of A because you are giving A as a consideration and its value is 400. So you will need to book B at 400 as well, right? Do you know anything about commercial substance? What is commercial substance? Commercial substance will also help you to determine the value of the asset. Okay. Commercial substance is basically defined as the change in cash flows, inflows and outflows. Okay, not market value, change in cash flows. How? For example, if A is producing the output of 100 units, but B is producing output of 80 units, it means there is a commercial substance. It means definitely the value of B will be lower than the value of A because of the commercial substance. A is producing 100 units, B is producing 80 units. This is how commercial substance can be incorporated in the values, right? So, moving to subsequent measurement. Any question from initial measurement? Okay, subsequent measurement. Okay, one more thing before going to subsequent measurement. Depreciation. What is depreciation? Okay. How can you define depreciation? Depreciation is basically a systematic allocation of depreciable amount, okay, of yeah, of a depreciable amount over the useful life of asset. Okay, so basically, sometime it can be called as a wear and tear allowance. Okay, and when to start charging depreciation? Let me give you an example. Okay, first, for example, you have purchased the asset on 1st March. You have purchased the asset. It is transported to your premises on 30th June. Transported. Then it is installed on 1st November. It is installed and available for use. Okay. Then you have decided that you will start using that asset on next year, 1st Jan next year. So when you will start depreciating the asset? June 30th. It is not functioning. It is installed on 30th November, 1st November, sorry. Basically the standard, okay, 1st November installed, but you are using it on 1st January, start using it. Exactly. The standard tells you that start depreciating the asset when it is available for use till it is disposed. Okay. So the wear and tear allowance and usage allowance, basically depreciation does not work in that way. Okay. There are cases when even you are not using the asset, you are depreciating it, like we have seen that in this particular example. There are cases when you are using that asset, but you are not depreciating it. There are cases. Okay. So depreciation is nothing to do with usage. Okay. Although when you are using the output method, then obviously you have to deal with the usage. You have to incorporate usage to depreciate the asset. Okay. So we have understood the 2 points: starting date and ending date. When to start depreciation, when to end depreciation. What will be the method that you will be using to depreciate the asset? Straight line, reducing, double declining. What do you think? Depends on policy and how you are making a policy. If you are a finance director and you are asked by your subordinates, okay, let me ask you, I'm your subordinate, you are the finance director. So, sir, tell me please, what is the depreciation policy that we use to depreciate that asset? What will be your answer? So क्या attributes होंगे जिसमें हम कह सकते हैं आपके माइंड में क्या है? So standard is very much clear about it. Matching concept, right? Whatever the methods you want to use it. But keep in mind, the depreciation method should reflect the economic benefit. For example, if the economic benefit throughout the life is constant, straight line method is more appropriate. But if the benefits obtaining from the assets are declining with time, reducing balance method is more appropriate. So that should how we depreciate assets. Okay, right? Okay, move now. Subsequent measurement. So subsequent measurement is basically we have two models. One is cost model and the other one is revaluation model. So cost model is very simple. Use the cost calculated in initial measurement, uh, charge accumulated depreciation, charge any accumulated impairment, and this will be the final figure that will be reported in the balance sheet as the value of non-current asset. But for revaluation model, we'll be using fair value. We will discuss fair value in IFRS 13. Okay. Then less subsequent accumulated depreciation, subsequent accumulated impairment, and this will be the value that will be reported in the financial position as a value of asset. So if you are the one to decide which model it will be used. So what is your choice? What will be your preference, whether to use cost model or revaluation model? Revaluation model. Why? Okay, it depends on one. But how? Why you are using a revaluation model as the first step? Because the increase in value will be incorporated in, right? But that decrease in value will also be incorporated, right? Don't you think? No. The decrease in value applies to both models. If you see impairment here and impairment here, so decrease, we cannot say impairment can be done in any way, whether you are using cost model or revaluation model. Okay. By using revaluation model, let me tell you, your return on capital will show adverse effect. But as we know that the market trends and the fair value measurement is more important, that's why we are going to use revaluation model. Otherwise, our expense has been increased and our capital or equity has been increased, which adversely affect the return on capital employed and some other profitability ratio as well. Okay. Okay. How revaluation model works? Let's just do it here. So revaluation, for example, there is a possibility of surplus and a deficit, right? Then subsequently there is also a possibility of surplus again and deficit, surplus, deficit. Okay. Okay. For example, we have purchased an asset for 100, right? So it is its value jumps to 120, or there is a possibility its value jumps to 90, right? Is it visible? The screen is visible to you? Okay. Okay. While writing, I am mentioning the values as well. Uh, does it work well or no? Okay, after 120, there is a possibility that it jumps to 130, or after 120, there is a possibility that it will fall its value to 95, right? If we look at this side, this 90 side, there is a possibility the value jumps to 115, and there is a possibility that it further fall. Sorry, where is the, yeah, yeah. There is a possibility that it will fall to 85. Okay. So how revaluation works? So simple rule, a surplus should be recorded in revaluation reserve or OCI, what we can call. Okay. And the deficit should be charged to profit and loss. Okay. A surplus should be recorded as a gain in revaluation reserve, and let me tell you that revaluation reserve is an unrealized gain. Okay. This is not realized gain. An unrealized gain, it means that the gain has been earned, but we will get benefit once we sold that asset. So that is an unrealized gain. Okay. So a revaluation surplus, a surplus should be recorded in revaluation reserve. So there is a surplus of 20 from 100 to 120. So debit non-current asset with 20 and credit revaluation reserve with 20. Okay. And a deficit, what about a deficit? A deficit should be charged to profit and loss. So from 100 to 90, there is a deficit of 10. So it means credit non-current asset 10, debit profit and loss 10. Okay. Okay. Now coming to this side, from 120 to 130, there is a surplus. What is the rule? What are the rules for surplus? A revaluation should be recorded in revaluation reserve. Debit non-current asset for 10 and credit revaluation reserve with 10. And there is a deficit in this way. From 90, the asset will fall to 85. Deficit should be charged to profit and loss, right? Debit profit and loss with 5. Credit non-current asset with 5. Okay. Okay. Coming to this situation. Okay. From 90, the asset was purchased for 100, deficit of 10 has been recorded. Now it is recorded in 90, and from 90 we again had a gain, okay, at subsequent measurement of 115. So from 90 to 115 there is a gain of 25. A revaluation must be recorded in revaluation reserve unless it reverses the previous deficit. Okay. If that is the case, remove the deficit to the extent of deficit. Over and above will be charged to revaluation reserve. Over and above will be credited to revaluation reserve. Okay. So first thing, from 90 to 115, the assets value has been increased. So debit non-current asset with 25. A surplus should be credited to revaluation reserve unless it reverses the previous deficit. In that case, remove the deficit to the extent of deficit. So we have a deficit of 10. So first remove it. Credit profit and loss with 10. Okay. Over and above will be recorded in revaluation reserve. Right? Is it clear? Okay. Next thing. In this situation, from 120, the value will fall to 95. So we have a deficit. What are the rules? A deficit should be charged to profit and loss unless there is a reversal of previous surplus, right? In that case, remove the surplus to the extent of surplus. Over and above will be charged to profit and loss. So first thing, the asset value has been fall to 120 to 95. So we need to credit non-current asset with 25. Debit revaluation reserve. There was a revaluation reserve present here of 20. Over and above will be charged to profit and loss 5. Okay. This is how revaluation works, right? Okay. Moving to some more examples of revaluation. Okay. But before moving to revaluation, we have done the how to create revaluation reserve. Now it's time to discuss whether how to realize revaluation reserve. Okay. As I told you earlier that revaluation reserve is unrealized gain, so we need to realize the revaluation reserve. Okay. So there are two methods. One, you can realize on annual basis with useful life, or there is no need to realize on annual basis. It will automatically realize at disposal. Okay. So there are two methods. Either the company will choose the policy to realize it on annual basis or at disposal. So most of the time this is the benchmark treatment because it will be automatically following the matching concept. So we will be doing both. Okay. First thing, the realization entry. How to realize? What will be the journal entry to realize the revaluation reserve? It means we have to debit the revaluation reserve and credit the retained earning, and that will be done on statement of change in equity. Okay.